On this episode of This is Gravel, we talk the hell of the Midwest coming to Kansas with the Belgian Waffle ride and more. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to Season 6, Episode 2 of This is Gravel, joined in the studio by no one other than the Minister of Gravel.
I'm here.
Neil Taylor. Neil, 6 weeks basically since our last episode. And to be clear, we said we were going to try to do one episode a month.
One a month.
It is still February.
We're here. It's February. We made it. I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was easier to get in here to film this than it is right now to get out and ride my bike.
That's 100% correct. It is like 7 degrees, which when we get to social media might be a warm ride compared to some of these photos I've seen. But I'm just not going to suck it up and get out there on the bike.
Yeah, I'm getting older, and I know when I say that, every time I say that, the people that are older than me, shut up, you're young. Man, my body's just feeling it, Matt. I don't enjoy the cold like I used to. It was just a few years ago. You and me were riding in negative degree temperatures. We've been there. We've done that. I don't feel a need to get out there this February.
We would pride ourselves on a New Year's Day ride and how cold it was. I remember we've had bottles freeze up on the bikes, all of that stuff. But that's just not who I am right now.
It's not who I am either. I enjoy the nice rides. I cannot wait for spring. I cannot wait for the nice weather. And when that comes, I anticipate there's going to be a lot of riding. There's going to be a lot of these overnighters that we talked about on the last episode. And I'm looking forward to that. But right now, getting outside, riding my bike outside isn't the most appealing thing. I get that.
But first, I got to call you out. I really appreciate Neil does these great notes for us to get started on the show and kind of jot things out. And I kid you not, what it says right here, busy, shoot the content. Matt and Neil have done nothing the past 6 weeks. Nothing is what he says. That's false. That is false, Neil. We got out and did like a 45-mile ride. You froze your toes off.
I did. So we have done something. We've done a couple rides.
But I need credit for that. Actually, I'm crossing it out in my notes.
Go for it. I put that, I think, in there when I was a little bit in a bad mood because I'm not able to get out right now and ride my bike. And so just sitting there saying, feel like I'm doing nothing.
Do you get grumpy?
I get a little grumpy at times. Sure, absolutely. I think we all do. And I'm grumpy when I don't get to get outside and ride my bike. And yes, absolutely, if I wanted to, I could get out right now and ride. I just don't see the benefit in riding in temperatures this cold. I'd rather just stay inside and be a little bit warm right now. But you're right. We did get out. We did an awesome 45-mile ride back here at the end of January. We've done a couple short rides to start off February, but definitely haven't been able to get out there as much as I'd like. And so it kind of felt like a little bit of nothing's been done.
Do you know the worst thing about that ride being a while ago? I'm officially out of cool sunset photos on my bike to post on Instagram and Facebook for the page. So eventually, before next week, no, take that back. Sometime in the next couple weeks, we got to get out and take some more photos on the bike to share on social media.
Not just that, but we need to get back out. But right now, I'm hitting the pause. But I have a feeling that after this week's Arctic blast that we are having here in Kansas, you can look up the temperatures, folks. I mean, this Friday, the high is going to be 6 degrees. The low is going to be like negative 10 degrees. I'm not getting out and riding in that, but I have a feeling afterwards when we hit like 30-degree days, it's going to feel nice. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be like, hey, you know what? 30 degrees, we'll get out, we'll ride some bikes, have a good time.
Just to save the commenters some trouble, Neil, why don't you ride a trainer?
I'm good. I think I'd rather ride outside in negative 6-degree weather.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact is you have a trainer. I have a trainer. I'll get on it maybe once or twice this week, maybe. But
I've tried. I just can't do it. I don't enjoy it. And because I'm not training to race, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be doing events this year. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get out and do some hard miles this year. But I'm not looking to race anymore, and I'm not going to put myself through torture on a trainer. It's just not me. I've tried it. And like you say, I've got a nice Wahoo kicker core. I mean, it's not like I'm riding on rollers or I'm riding on some cheap trainer. I've got something that is nice. I just don't enjoy it. And so I haven't done a whole lot of riding on the trainer. I maybe will get it set up during this week because it is pretty tough to get outside right now. But boy,
But it's going to feel good when we get back out there, when we get a warm day, which after this 10-day period, a warm day is freezing.
Absolutely.
32 degrees and I'm on the bike.
No doubt. Like I say, I think we got a day that's going to be right around there, and we'll get out. We'll ride for sure. We'll get back outside. You'll see some of those fun photos. We love posting the photos. We love sharing everything.
And we love seeing your photos.
Absolutely, which we'll get to later in the show. But, just because it's been a rough 6 weeks for us and it feels like maybe nothing's happened in our lives, the world of gravel has started to kind of, I would almost say, feel alive again. You're seeing a lot of events that are popping up their registrations, have popped up their registration. On today's show, we're going to talk about a new event that has popped up out there. So a lot's been going on. A lot of things have taken place. We have even started seeing events kind of taking place also again. I mean, just this past weekend, Gravel Growler that we went down to last year in Oklahoma took place in the snow. And so
it was much nicer than that last year.
It was much nicer than that. I'm glad that we went in 2020. I actually am glad about something in 2020.
That might have been the pinnacle of our cycling. That was the pinnacle of our cycling 2020.
In 2020. Yeah, and so, but it looked rough this past year, so kudos to the guys that were out there. But, I mean, it has been busy. I mean, Gravel Worlds, an event that is close to us as a show and close to us as individuals, has sold out and is having their biggest event by far. And so we've seen kind of that side, a lot of races selling out and getting, huge numbers. Yeah. On the other side of that too, the race that was our last big race, MidSouth, had to pull the plug. And so it was yes. Pull the plug. Okay.
A big butt right there.
But
they pulled the plug
on their in-person
event in downtown Stillwater.
Correct.
I see every day, it almost feels like on social media, that they've gone out there and there's new routes being launched. I think you can plan your own routes for it. So I guess they're making lemonade out of lemons.
Correct. Okay, it's not pulled the plug in the fact that it's no longer happening in the way that we are accustomed to MidSouth taking place. We've been to MidSouth for many years. We've seen it take place rain or shine, mud or dry, so many different things. We even have seen it take place at the beginning of what was a very
global pandemic,
chaotic moments in so many people's lives. But this year, Bobby and the crew had to make a decision on what to do. And no doubt for them, that was a tough decision that had to be made. But as they looked at local numbers, as they looked at still, I'm sure, national and even global numbers, had to make a choice. And so we have a completely different way of doing MidSouth, and like you say, the events, the routes are popping up all over. We're going to have a local route here in Emporia that Gravel City's putting on. So they are still, yes, absolutely trying to make lemonade out of lemons.
But is it still MidSouth if Bobby Wintel's not standing 5 feet from me singing country roads?
It will be weird. Good thing we have video of that, I'm sure. If not, I know
we have more than 1 year's video.
I was going to say, I know at least I have some video of that on my cell phone, so I can still tune in. I can still listen to Bobby Wintel sing country roads. I've still got so many other videos from many years down there to relive what it's been like in the past.
Do you think we could get him to sing it on the show?
I think we might try.
Bobby, if you're watching, we need to get in touch.
Absolutely. I think it would be awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Gravel City here in Emporia has put together a route. I know lots of different communities across the country here putting on events and really promoting people stay close to home for it and compete in these events. So, yeah, just making lemonade out of lemons, and it's been a hectic 6 weeks already.
It has. It's been crazy. It's been wild. When I say we haven't done anything, we have done a lot. I think both of us in our personal lives have been very busy, something that we talked about during the first show that we filmed. That we've got a lot going on in our own lives, and so things have been busy. We have done our best to get out there and ride the bike. Things are still taking place in the gravel world, which is cool to see. And I kind of hinted, just moments ago about even new events popping up here over the last 6 weeks. And one of those new events I was really excited to see. BWR's coming to Kansas. And Matt,
what is BWR?
Belgian Waffle Ride.
Thank you.
And no problem. And last year, that was going to be the high point of what was going to be my year personally. I've never been out to San Diego before. I was signed up for the San Diego event, which at that time, when I was signed up for it, was the only BWR event that there was. Now they have 4. They have obviously the San Diego one. There's one out in Utah, one in North Carolina. But then to see on February 1st, they are starting one here in Kansas. That was just awesome to see, to have something come here local. I mean, just up the highway from us here in Kansas. It's awesome to see that we're going to have another new big fun event here in Kansas.
Absolutely. Spoiler alert, we got Dan Hughes on in just a minute. We talked to him just before we filmed this show, did a great interview about BWR coming to Lawrence. I think just to segue in, I'm going to read the release that they put out on February 1st. For the first time, Monuments of Cycling brings its iconic BWR to Kansas, where a vibrant cycling culture anxiously awaits this new spectacle, the Hell of the Midwest, which will take place on Halloween Day, punctuated by dozens of off-road sectors over a route throughout the northeast region of Kansas, giving the event its unique complexion. 111 miles, 8,000 feet of elevation gain. How excited?
I'm pretty excited about it because, last year I was excited about going out to San Diego, seeing an event like that. It looked awesome. It looked like a fun time. Everybody that I talked to said it was awesome. But to see that, hey, they're going to bring that same energy that they have in San Diego out here to an event that is local in Kansas, I'm pumped about it. I can't wait. October 31st, Halloween. It's my birthday.
It's your birthday?
So hopefully be out there riding on my birthday, enjoying 111 miles of Kansas gravel.
Absolutely. No one better to hear from than Dan Hughes on this event. Dan, big news coming last week on the interwebs. I think it was last Monday. You guys announced a brand new event for Lawrence, Kansas. Why don't you give us just a little bit of an overview and we'll jump in.
Sounds good. Last Monday was launch day for our announcement that we're partnering with the folks at Belgian Waffle Ride, BWR, to bring a gravel race to Lawrence this fall, Halloween actually, this October 31st. And Belgian Waffle Ride is probably most known for their event in San Diego that draws about 4,000 people in a normal year. But they're expanding their reach and are looking to put something in the middle of the map, so to speak, and approached us about introducing people to Lawrence gravel. So we're excited to work with them and hopefully bring another version of the surface that we all love so much in the form of Lawrence and Douglas County and Northeast Kansas gravel.
Yeah, Dan. Lawrence, when you think historically of cycling in Kansas, is probably one of the older, most well-known cycling communities in the state. Long before Emporia had an established cycling community, Lawrence has always kind of been that mecca, working up into Johnson and Wyandotte counties towards the Kansas City area. What does it mean for you, being a longtime Lawrence resident, to be able to bring something like this to your hometown?
Well, it's, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that Douglas County and I think really any progressive city in the country, oftentimes associated with a university maybe, ends up having some people that are adventurous and want to get out and do things. And so, when I look back at 50 years of the Lawrence Bike Club doing their fall road ride, Octagenta, or the Mount Oread Bicycle Club, it's just part of the Lawrence culture that cycling is a pretty strong piece of it. So from a gravel perspective, I can remember being on our kind of ad hoc annual 100-mile gravel ride that we would put on every fall, just a bunch of us getting together and riding all the great gravel roads of Douglas County. And I remember pulling over to, let the group regroup, and everybody's taking a drink of water from their bottle. And somebody said, "Hey, did you hear that they're going to do this 200-mile gravel race down in Emporia?" And it must have been the fall of 2005. And we were familiar with John Hobbs and the Death Ride and other things that were going on in South Central Kansas, but that was kind of our first introduction to what could be with a big gravel event. And obviously DK and / now Unbound has grown over the years, but every one of those events I did in Emporia, I kept thinking back to the roads that we have here in Lawrence and thought, man, we got some good stuff up here as well. So to be able to bring a big event to a community that already is kind of like-minded in terms of cycling adventure is a pretty natural fit, I think. So something to be excited about for sure.
Awesome, Dan. So obviously we know on February 1st, this didn't just pop out of nowhere. How did we get to the point that you and BWR found this marriage to bring an event like this to Lawrence, Kansas?
Yeah, that's a great question. From a sunflower perspective, we've been working on various aspects of a strategic plan for probably the last 2 or 3 years, with specific line items about whether it's adding a cafe or developing our e-commerce business or whatever. But having an event is one of those line items on there. Having our shop associated with a big event is something that we believe helps bolster our presence in the community and just makes things just more robust all the way around. So the BWR connection, there's a guy, or was a guy, named Adam Mills, who is Lawrencian and now lives in San Diego, and he knows the BWR guys. And oddly enough, last January, they invited me out to be a coach for their event. They have a training camp, much like a lot of these gravel events have a training camp, and they asked me to go out and be a coach. And I thought, okay, well, I've got some knowledge in this arena, but you've got people that are far faster than me, so I'll just go and I'll be the C team group leader. But every conversation I had with folks out there was they all wanted to know about gravel racing in the Midwest and what it was like, and they were picking my brains for all that sort of stuff. But that was kind of where the connection with BWR happened, just meeting those guys and gals that are part of that organization. And so when they looked to expand into the Midwest, Adam, who was a fan of Lawrence and a fan of Free State beer and a fan of KU basketball, said maybe you should talk to the folks at Sunflower about that. And so that's how that conversation started.
Yeah, that's great to hear how those connections happen. And I think all of us that have ever traveled out of Kansas in the gravel scene here, that's a question that comes up all the time. People just want to hear about our local gravel. What's it like to ride here? And I think I'm guilty of taking it for granted. The fact that I can roll out the door and I'm on Flint Hills gravel 3 miles from our door every night we go ride. So it's fun to hear those connections and those stories. But as we talk about this local effect of it, let's talk about the route itself and the town of Lawrence. So starting and finishing on Mass Street, correct? How would you... Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So the route at the moment is, I would say it's 95% baked. Start finish is still kind of up in the air as we work with our local resource folks, whether it's the Douglas County Health Department or the city itself or fire and medical. The components of this event are that there's going to be an expo and there'll be some live music, and we're really trying to position it as an event for the entire community. And we're not new in thinking of doing it that way. Obviously, the folks at Lifetime and Unbound have created an incredible showpiece there in Emporia, and Bobby Wintle in Stillwater has an amazing event in MidSouth. So we're definitely taking some cues from those events in terms of what we hope our event can mimic. But route-wise, getting, and to your point about being able to hop on your bike and be out on some pretty amazing gravel almost instantaneously, I think that is something that until you go someplace else and talk to somebody who says, yeah, I have to load my bike on my car and drive an hour out of the city to find some good stuff to ride on, I don't even understand how that works. You just hop on your bike and go ride. It's something that we're pretty spoiled with here in the Midwest. So race-wise, definitely a start-finish in the downtown environment somewhere, contingent on the space needs of the expo and of whatever musical or whatever festival sort of things we're going to have happen.
Yeah, very cool with that. How would you describe Lawrence itself? Maybe if people have only been to Emporia or heard about Emporia with the 200-mile event here, how would you describe maybe the difference in maybe the scale that Lawrence is able to provide?
Yeah, Lawrence is, obviously home to the University of Kansas. The population here is about 80,000, so about 100,000 if you include the county. We're situated pretty equidistantly between Kansas City and Topeka, about 30 miles in either direction. Lawrence itself is positioned right on the Kansas River, the Kaw, which eventually flows down into the Missouri. But it's a fairly hilly area. Obviously the Flint Hills are named the Flint Hills for a reason. And I think one of the things that, and you guys know this very well, is that people come to Kansas with, I think, an expectation that it's going to be pancake flat and boring. And, you guys know as well as I do that people come to these events and I think they walk in and they think, well, how hard could it be? And then they get, and in the case of the Flint Hills, and I would argue Northeast Kansas as well, they probably come in with an expectation of this is going to be boring, and it's Kansas, it's flyover country, and time again, I think participants in these events, figuratively and literally, get blown away by not only how difficult and challenging the event can be, but ultimately how incredibly beautiful Kansas is, and their expectations come in at a certain level, and they're just wowed, and that's, I think, speaks volumes about where we live and the opportunities to expose people to that. So Northeast Kansas, it's hilly. The roads are twisty and turny. I mean, that's why we love gravel roads. They're the coolest roads to ride on, and the gravel is variable. It's probably doesn't have the same sharpness that the Flint Hills do, but depending on whether or not the county goes out and uses up all their gravel budget, it can be chunky as well. So,
it's one of those.
And that's another aspect of.
Yeah,
another aspect of this event too is that in the one that they do in San Diego, you could probably do 90% of that on a road bike, and then they throw in some little sectors that are challenging on a 700 by 28 tire. Our event is going to have some single track on it. It's not, Mountain Dew, Red Bull commercial sort of single track, but it's designed to make you think twice about what bike you're going to bring and what tire you're going to run, and that's part of the throwing those challenges at you style of BWR.
How did you 111 miles? How did you guys come up with that number and that distance of an event?
Well, great question. A normal BWR event is about 140 miles or so. We wanted our event to be a little shorter than that. For a long time, I felt like we wanted a bookend to the gravel season. So if you take, Bobby Wintel's race in early spring as a kickoff for the gravel season, and then you take Unbound as kind of your midsummer, the high point of the season. At the end of the season, you kind of want to have a coming together of the gravel tribe, the gravel community, and so that's partly why we picked a fall date, but also how the slightly shorter distance came into play. Now, obviously, there's other distances involved. There's the full waffle, and then there's the wafer, and then there's the Wana. There's something for everybody in terms of distance for sure. The 111 side of it is interesting in that part of the package for this thing is that it's a fundraising thing for the Steve Tilford Foundation. And for those that aren't familiar with Steve Tilford, Steve was a fairly legendary Topeka cyclist who was a pro for many, many, many years and totally embodied this idea of going out and testing yourself against all sorts of conditions. Ironically, he never did the race in Emporia because I think he thought that was a little bit too much, although he could have done very well there, I'm sure. But the Steve Tilford Foundation, Steve was a huge fan of, for whatever reason, the numerology of ones being stacked on top of each other. He always liked 11:11 a.m. and so the fact that it happens to be 111 miles fits in nicely with his wheelhouse of number science, which I'm sure as the miles tick down there, I would prefer him to have been more excited about 100 miles or 90 miles. But that's similar to when you go to do the Leadville 100 and you get to mile 100 and you figure out it's 103 miles. It's not it's just a little insulting in that moment, but it's a good coincidence.
Yeah, that's great. Neil?
Yeah, awesome stuff. So we've talked about the event. We've talked about a little bit about the route, but we are in still a pretty crazy time in this world, in this area. So what struggles are you guys looking to have to face as a first-year event during what is still a pandemic with COVID taking place right now?
That's a great question. Obviously, the times that we're living in now, boy, what I wouldn't give for precedented times. I'm getting tired of unprecedented. But part of the reason for partnering with BWR is that, last year we saw MidSouth kind of be the last race on the calendar before everything kind of got shut down and everybody kind of had to pivot real hard last year. And BWR was able to launch safely a race in Cedar City last year that had 800 participants. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was even viewed by the health department there as a non super spreader sort of event, right? It was deemed to have been pulled off safely. And so for us, obviously wanting to have a big event, but also be responsible community stewards of Lawrence, it's important for us to be able to have that come off in a safe way. So we'll obviously see where we're at by the time we get to October, where vaccinations are. But I think there's a pathway, given the fact that the event is outside, and given the idea that you could probably truncate some big parties afterwards and really reinforce some social distancing and mask wearing. And I think by the time we get to October, we'll have a pretty good handle on how to safely pull off an event of this size outside of the logistics of working with the county and the city and that sort of thing, just on normal nuts and bolts race promotion. But I think we'll be able to do it by October for sure, and use that Cedar City example that I think honestly other race directors are going to mimic in their own way.
And I think what positive you have going into it, maybe you and Bobby Wintle both, is being in a community with a D1 university. So where these events, these races are big in our cycling community scene compared to a home football game or a basketball game. Communities know how to handle them. So going into year 2 of it, I hope we have some plans on being able to pull this off. And it sounds like you guys are doing great on that front. 2 quick questions for you, kind of to wrap up the interview here.
Yeah.
End of October, what is weather like in Lawrence? And then my follow-up question is, what tires would you ride at this moment?
Well, end of October weather. It's a bit of a gamble, but it can be. You know what they say about Kansas weather. If you don't like it, wait. So I've been to some events in April that are 17 degrees, and I've been to some events in November that are 80 degrees. If I'm putting on my meteorologist hat and giving you a 10-month forecast here, it's a long look, but I would say we'd probably end up with a beautiful fall day that starts out crisp and warms up to just the right temperature. There's a light consideration, right? That's another reason for a little shorter distance, is that there's only so many available hours in the day that are lit. So if we're going off of a 10 mile per hour cutoff time, which is kind of the standard for these events, we want to make sure everybody's back in town before it gets dark. But I think it's going to be a great day in terms of weather. So fingers crossed. Tire selection. Given the fact that it's a BWR event in San Diego, where it's predominantly pavement with a little bit of off surface riding in. Those guys and gals run 700 by 28s all day long. I would not run that tire here, nor would I run that tire really anywhere in the Midwest. And given that our event is predominantly gravel with a little bit of single track thrown in there, I would imagine that the competers, and as a sidebar, I think every one of these events is probably 10% people who are racing that I call competers, and then 90% completers, people who are they don't know if they can make it or not, but it's a big challenge and they just want to get it done and survive. So I think the competers, they'll probably be on a 700 by 35 or 38 because that's a fast tire, and they can kind of fake their way through some of the single track sections. Myself, I think I'll probably be on 700 by 42, and that might be either on my single bike or there's probably a chance I get talked into riding tandem. I'll have to maybe take the tandem out to these single track sections. I know I can do it on the river trail. I'm not sure about Perry or the secret single track, so that might take some recon on my part. But 700 by 42 for me, it's a nice, comfy tire that can handle the day for sure.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're looking forward to it. I mean, last year I was supposed to go down to BWR in San Diego. Obviously missed out on that. So having an event this close to home, just as cool. We're looking forward to the future of it. And that's really, I had one last question I wanted to ask. Where do you see the future of this event? You mentioned earlier BWR San Diego, 4,000 riders. Is this something that hopefully post-COVID, I mean, is this the future of what we expect here with this event in Lawrence?
The first thing I'd say is that, and this is going to make me sound old, but it seems like time is passing very, very quickly. I think back to 2006 when there were 34 of us that lined up for the very first DK in that parking lot of that hotel, and it seems like that was just kind of yesterday. And now, obviously, the Unbound event there in Emporia is the gold standard by which all these other events are judged. I think from a population density standpoint, I don't think I think if you're in San Diego, you could throw a rock and hit 400 cyclists riding $10,000 bikes. I think that's just kind of the way it is there. And while, Unbound and certainly the folks on the team there in Emporia that put that event on have done, there's no other way to put it. They've done an incredible job of building a cycling community in Emporia where you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that existed in the same way that it does now prior to DK/Unbound being there. So
I remember, Dan, my first gravel event, and this would have been about 10 years ago. It was the Moans, Matt Kaczynski, a couple locals. There was like 15 of us that showed up to a 15-mile group ride, and I saw them pull up on these bikes that had the brand like Salsa on it, and I'm like, what is that? Yeah. So if that gives you any idea, and the 200-mile event had already been happening in Emporia for a couple years at this time. So I think that's one of those, yes, you're right, how much it's grown a community.
Yeah. And so I guess to answer your question, do I think we're going to get to 4,000 people? I don't know that that's totally in the cards. Would I like it to be 1,000 people? Sure. I think there's some opportunities there to just expose people to what's going on in Lawrence. And Lawrence is, I think Emporia and Lawrence go 1-2, depending on who you talk to, as coolest cities in Kansas. So I think there's some opportunities there for us to showcase what's going on up here. And I don't think we'll get as big as someplace that has a huge population center, but I think there's an opportunity to show it off for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Dan, for joining us today. I'm going to tell people to go to BelgianWaffleRide.bike, get registered for this new event here in Kansas, and we look forward to seeing you in Lawrence in this fall.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much for the time, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Awesome, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Matt, I'm excited about it. Having another what will be a big event. I mean, BWR, again, for those that don't know, is a huge thing within the world of cycling. Now, last year, I know when I was planning on going down to the event in the month of May, I might have heard within the studio or within some of the conversations with my friends that this is a roadie event. Roadie event no more. It's coming to Kansas. We don't have paved roads in Kansas, do we?
No. Calling it a roadie event, and I'm sure you might have heard that from me, it's probably a little harsh on the one out in San Diego, especially as I've done research for the show, researching the names involved in it. But I will say there's a lot of bike paths, and talking to former pros that have raced in it before at other events, there's a lot of bike paths and stuff like that. But there's off-road sections, and even Dan talks about the difference in tire size. Did you expect me to ask tire size?
I did not expect the tire size question because we usually wear out the tire size question. But that's the thing about BWR that is in San Diego is he even mentions there in the interview, you can run 28s out there. You're not running 28s in Kansas, folks. If you do that, you're going to have a miserable day on the bike. I don't care what part of Kansas that you're riding in. If you're riding in the Flint Hills or you're riding up by Lawrence, that's not your option for this event.
Were you going to ride 32s in California?
I was probably in California, yes. I had talked to some friends who told me 32s were the way to go, and so I was going to grab myself a set of 32s, throw on the bike, and ride out there.
With that said, we are done talking about tire size for at least 2 months on this show. But yeah, no, absolutely looking forward to it. I think for me, we love going to big cycling events, and this last year's been hard because we haven't traveled. I mean, we built a show and a brand around traveling and seeing our friends at big gravel events. So the fact that there's one coming into our backyard, essentially. Yeah, and as much as I say backyard, a neighboring community, because Lawrence Gravel, and Lawrence has always had a gravel scene. Shout out to Roger Williams up there putting on great events, usually right there at the beginning of spring, April. It can be cold, it can be warm, it can be a great day at those events, but riding 60 miles northeast of here is completely different than riding right here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, when people come to Emporia and ride, and I've even heard this out there in past DKs, that you get out there and you're riding, and within the first 5 to 10 miles, I'm hearing people constantly complaining about how flat it is. Boy, people, they talk, we come to this event and you're going to see some hills. Have
you ever heard me complain about how flat it is out here?
I haven't seen you out. On personal rides, yes. I was going to say, I've never seen you out there on the event, but yes, on personal rides, we definitely have. I mean, it is. It's flat around here. We talk about it even when we get out, and you find out that not all of Kansas is even as flat as those first few miles outside of Emporia. Up by Lawrence is much hillier. The fact that this is, 111 miles, 8,000 feet of elevation climb, that is a huge, huge punch of elevation for a 100-mile event.
I think it's an interesting or funny side note is when you told me last year you were getting ready to go to San Diego, do this road trip across the country to go to this event, when BWR announced this on February 1st, it took me by surprise.
Oh, yeah.
You texted me right away when you saw it, and then my morning was spent researching BWR, and I actually sent him an Instagram message from the Gravel Guru account, and it's funny, the only interaction I'd ever had with BWR was the day you and I rode to Madison because you needed hill climbing practice, and it was me complaining about Neil going to BWR and me having to ride hills because of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's San Diego is definitely hilly. Their event out there, 140 miles, and I believe it's somewhere on 13,000 feet of elevation, roughly, for that. Okay. And so it's hilly, and up by Lawrence is going to be hilly as well. Folks, when they come to that event, and they expect, especially if they've been here for DK in the past, it's not going to have, I don't think, as flat of an early rollout. Yeah. You're going to be hit with some hills earlier in the event than what you're used to. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some climbing, and it's going to, but it's going to also have some, I think that Dan mentions, the usual flair that you have in some of the BWR events. You're going to be hit with single track. You haven't been hit with single track around here before, at least. In an event.
I really look forward to it. And mad props to Dan for jumping on this. I don't think he gives himself the credit he deserves for being, I'll go out and say, one of the pioneers of modern gravel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his multiple wins here and just his background in cycling and running Sunflower Outdoor and Bike Shop there in downtown Lawrence.
Well, that's the thing, we talk about Dan the cyclist, and yes, he's won DK, Unbound, whatever, four times, only 4-time champion of the event. He's gone and he's won Gravel Worlds before in the past. He's won Trans Iowa, which is a 350-ish mile event. And so Dan has definitely done a lot as a rider within the world of cycling. But Like you say, business side too, owning an awesome shop up there in Lawrence with Sunflower. And then here now it's jumping into this side, and it's all been about really growing the community. And as mentioned in the interview, Lawrence has a great community for that, and now they've got a great event to go alongside their great cycling community.
Yeah, I really look forward to it. And, we are in a pandemic era time, and I think you and I were a little surprised when we saw a big name announcing an event.
Oh, yeah.
We'd heard rumors that there was an event going to happen in Lawrence, so that doesn't shock us. I mean, Lawrence is a D1 town, great cycling history. It only made sense that at some point there'd be an event there. But I think we were surprised to see a big name organization come in right off the heels of a pandemic. But after talking to Dan, BWR gets it. I feel 100% comfortable with whatever plan they're going to put in place at this point.
And one thing, too, that we didn't get to in the interview, but that also, as far as this singular event, the one in Kansas has going for it, is the fact that there are other 3 events that they have, the one in San Diego, the one in North Carolina, and the one in Utah, all take place in July, August, and September. So they've got 3 events leading up to the event here in October. So they're going to have practice at this. They're going to have run through all the protocols. They're going to have seen how everything went within those local communities there and how the riders responded to it. And this final of the 4 events that takes place here in Kansas in October, they're going to be running like clockwork. I think it is going to be smooth. They've had the experience already, and it might end up being probably one of the best of those 4 events this year because of that experience.
And it's Kansas gravel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it probably will be the best.
Yeah, and we're not biased.
But speaking of riding other places, thanks, Dan, for coming on the show.
Yes.
First of all, we always enjoy getting guests on. If you have any recommendations of people you want us to talk to on the show, send me an email, matt@gravelguru.com. We look forward to getting people on. It doesn't have to be local here to Kansas for us to do those interviews. Anyways, I think we've learned a lot about virtual interaction this last year. But,
absolutely.
But talking about interaction with our followers, social media time. We have, and we love getting these photos every week, posted on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all over the internet. So I guess without further ado, we're just going to jump in and start reading social media.
Let's see where they're riding.
First up, we've got this photo from Shannon Sanders out riding in the National Forest in central Arkansas. 40-ish mile route they call the Big Fish Loop. Look at those rolling hills there with the tree-lined roads. That looks awesome. Barry Stevenson sending this photo riding near Brushy Mountains, North Carolina. 43 miles and 5,600 feet of climbing. That's a lot of climbing for 43 miles.
That is a lot of climbing for 43 miles. Whew.
New photo in from Carlos Torres out in Owens Valley, California. That looks epic out there.
Looks beautiful. I'm going to assume just based upon the snow that's in that picture that we're probably Northern California. So looks awesome.
Yeah.
Looks like a fun place to go ride.
Yeah, it looks like a great time. Joe sending this photo says, more snow means more fat bike riding in Wilderness Park in Lincoln, Nebraska. Not the only fat bike photo we get from Lincoln, Nebraska. Looks like they know how to have fun, and they're having a winter that supports it this year.
I was going to say, that whole area knows how to have fun up there in Nebraska.
Kenneth Tucker, he was out at the Mississippi Gravel Cup Rock Crusher Challenge in the Tombigbee National Forest in Ackerman, Mississippi. That was a mouthful.
That was a mouthful. I'm not too sure exactly what you said.
Me either, but out riding in Ackerman, Mississippi. We'll go with that.
Boom.
Thank you so much, Kenneth, for sending in that photo. Great event going on down there. Sarah Knight, in the midst of 10 inches of snow falling in Nebraska this weekend, she said she kept it close to home with a bike path ride to pick up some takeout. Is it really a bike path ride if you can't see the bike path for the snow?
Yeah, I couldn't see the bike path in that picture,
So I'm going to correct that with she kept it close to home with a mixed terrain ride.
Sounds right to me.
Awesome, Sarah. Keep it up. Mark Williams sent in this photo riding in the Francis Marion National Forest of South Carolina. Beautiful, warm afternoon. He rode 25 miles and ran out of daylight. Seeing the post of folks riding in the snow makes him very thankful for a sunny 60-degree day in February to get out and ride gravel.
Send some of that 60-degree our way.
Absolutely. I'm ready for the weather. Scott Johnson out riding the Oklahoma Gravel Growler. It was great until it wasn't. And then it was great again, he said. Those are some of those days you just have to keep on pedaling.
We've all had those days. I've had those days where it was great, then all of a sudden, oh man, and then when you get to the end of it, it's always great. But seeing a lot of the pictures that flew in from the Oklahoma Gravel Growler this past weekend, I'm glad I was at home.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can take optimism for our next photo. Jennifer from Southwest Ontario riding a snowy rail trail, not worrying about sunburn, nor heat, nor exhaustion. See? The bright side of life.
So what you're saying is that Jennifer's telling you and me to get out and ride our bike today.
She is, in fact, telling us to get out and ride our bike. But what she doesn't say is she's not worrying about sunburn, nor heat, nor exhaustion. But what about frostbite, Neil?
That's what I'm saying, Matt. It's cold looking in that photo.
It isn't cold. Alan White was out at the gravel growler as well. Said word on the street was 15 to 20% finish rate. Hey, you're a winner if you got out and started that day. I mean, the forecast this year for gravel growler was the exact opposite of last year.
Yeah, last year was nice.
Last year they had, I think, record attendance at it because the 2 weeks before the weather just kept climbing nicer and nicer. Hence, probably why we were at it.
Yes.
But this year, that week before, it just kind of started plummeting and looking bad. So if you towed the line, congrats to you down there at the gravel growler. And finally, we got the photo from Paul Brasby. Be out riding the sand hills of North Platte, Nebraska. I cannot read today, but he looks like he's having a lot of fun on his Cutthroat. Got all the bags on it, carrying enough supplies out there. And I think that's something I've rode with my frame bag a lot this year. Just being able to throw another layer in the bag or be able to take the layer off if you don't need it.
Well, yeah, I've kept a bigger bag on my handlebars this past few months as well because it's nice to be able to throw a lot of things in there. You can throw extra food. Like you say, if you want to bring an extra layer just in case, I've thrown that in there before and have used it. So it's nice, I would say, during the winter to keep that option open for a lot of folks that are riding. Carry an extra bag. It's not going to hurt you.
Well, thank you to everybody that submitted photos on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It is a great time to send these photos in. We love seeing it. You know, we make fun of the folks up north. They make us feel bad because we're not out riding. But, you know, in the summer we'll be making fun of people riding in the desert too. So it is what it is. But we absolutely love. I think it provides a little bit of brightness to our day, especially these gloomy days. Keeps us motivated to get out and ride. And we love commenting and seeing where we are. So thanks for everybody that sent those in. Neil, wrapping up social media, what do we have coming up next here on Gravel Guru in the month of March?
Well, Matt, in our last show, we talked about something that you and I were planning on doing this year. 12 nights under the stars. 12 nights of bike packing. Matt, how many nights have we got so far?
I'm at absolutely, let me think about it, 0 nights under the stars this year. Maybe we should have got an early January one?
Yeah, we talked, I know, and we even said it, I believe, on the last show.
It was too cold back then.
I was going to say, I think we even talked about it on the last show. We weren't going to do much under 32 degrees outside of us going and buying a whole bunch of other equipment to go out and camp in those kind of, which we just don't do. We haven't ever gone out, at least I haven't ever gone out and camped in those temperatures on a bike packing trip. So I wasn't saying, you know, I wasn't wanting to go out and spend the money that was needed to just say, okay, cool, we got one out of the way in February.
Yeah,
or I got one out of the way in January.
You know, there's ways to do it. And I mean, look at Jay Peterberry's Instagram and some of those people that have done Fat Pursuit. Steve Cannon in Nome.
Yes, absolutely. No.
There's ways to do it. I will say I'm not ready to spend the dollars to retool my equipment.
Yeah.
To do that. But with that being said, we're still, even though we're another month down the road, we're still going to get our 12 nights.
Very, very clear about that. We are getting our 12 nights. This is happening. And our next show is going to focus, I would say, primarily, at least in large part, around that endeavor, around what we are planning, around what we are wanting to do, but also, I would say, too, what we're hoping you guys do. We want you to join us on this journey. We want you to come out and to do your own bike packing. And maybe if you're local, maybe we do something together. If you're somewhere else, get out and spend those 12 nights under the stars with us. Share with us maybe short little video clips, maybe pictures of what you're doing, because we want to see that, because we're hoping not only that we can inspire and encourage you, but that you can do some of that for us too, that you can bring some inspiration to say, hey guys, you know what? You guys can keep with it, keep pushing, keep trying to get out there for your 12 nights. So we'd love to see you guys be a part of this. And again, we're going to dive, I would say, full into that here in the next episode.
A couple questions I have for our followers on this. If we do some sort of like 12 nights passport where you log your 12 nights, tell us where they're at, you know, maybe post a photo. Is this something you want to participate in with us? We can share your post on a show. We might even film a separate social media show regards to each month. This is where people have been writing. And if you get your 12 nights, are you interested in some sort of, I don't want to say giveaway because I want to give it to everybody that did it, whether it's a sticker, a vinyl decal, a patch, something like that, a hat. If this is something you're interested in, hashtag in the comments, hashtag 12 nights bike packing. And we'll get started with that. We want to see, but if it's not something you're interested in doing, we're going to focus on getting ourselves out and bike packing.
Yeah, put something in the comments. Make sure one way or another to let us know, either at Gravel Guru, Minister of Gravel. Let us know that there is an interest in that, because I think that's something me and Matt have talked about over the past 6 weeks. When we joked about saying we haven't done anything over the past 6 weeks, one of the things we have done is spend a little bit of time talking about what we would like to see this be, not just for us this year in 12 Nights Under the Stars, but also hopefully for you guys, and what that will be for you all to kind of join us on this adventure.
Yeah, I know there's some big plans in the works. We've talked about even some little camping areas getting set up so we can sneak out quicker and get some content. But I really look forward to this, and I look forward to this to being the initiative for kind of Gravel Guru in 2021.
Yeah, I can't wait. Especially here soon as the temperatures soar up from the negatives that we're having to at least positive temperatures. I'm looking forward to this being a big part of not just what we as a show are doing in this coming year, but also what I as an individual am doing in the future, really, of my cycling.
Yep. We can't thank you enough for watching this episode of This is Gravel. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share the episode to all of your friends. You think you've got someone that's interested in cycling, go back in our library, share some of our old videos with them, some how-tos and whatnot. But please like and subscribe. That really keeps us motivated. That really keeps us driving forward and heading down this bike path we're on.
Absolutely, Matt.